What's up, everyone? Welcome to the most positive pop culture podcast in the multiverse, Metalcore Nerds, the podcast that features members of your favorite bands as we explore their love of pop culture. I'm your host, Sean Mott, and this week I'm joined by Frank Zummo of Sum 41 and Electric Callboy. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, man. How are you?
I am great. Doing really, really well. How are you? On the road?
Yeah,
Making time for podcasts?
Book promo time, so it's all good. I'm happy to do it. And I'm in Stockholm. We're about to have the third show of this tour tomorrow. So we started in this region. We did Denmark, Oslo last night, and it's been amazing. Just a really, really great tour. Wild, just a massive production, and crowd's been crazy. Just awesome energy. So yeah, this is going to be an awesome world tour.
Yeah, I watched some videos to see the scope of the production and everything like that, and it does look absolutely insane. So cool.
Yeah, the band went big for this one because it's an arena tour, over here in Europe. So it's just like wanted to go as big as possible and just bring such an experience, which even the festival run I did in the summer was a crazy production. This is just levels above that, which is cool. It's been really cool to build this whole production. We did a lot of rehearsing and production rehearsals, and now just like seeing it out in the wild and just seeing the reaction from people. It's really, really cool.
Before we get into more of what Frank is going on, his story and what he's into as far as TV and everything like that. Whether returning to the show or first time listener, thank you so much for checking out the show. The best way to support the podcast. If you're watching this on YouTube, subscribe, hit that like button, comment, let us know what you're thinking of the episode, what you've been into as far as music and TV. If you're listening on your favorite podcast platform, again, subscribing is the easiest way to do it, and leaving a 5-star review helps podcast continue to grow, helps more people find the show. If you want our daily fix of Metalcore Nerds, you can find us on all social media at Metalcore Nerds. Now, your story is a wild one. It's a very cool one, and the more I dove deep into it, the more fascinated I became with it. And I know that you were born into a musical family, and you saw Motley Crue and Ozzy at 5 years old, and that kind of set you on this path that you've been going on your entire life. But I just want to know if there's any other bands that were highly influential to you, like maybe in your teenage years, your young adult years, that helped kind of form your style, your musical tastes as you were growing up.
Early on was my dad's record collection, which was amazing. He was a college radio DJ, so it was all the classic rock, amazing records, and like, the AC/DCs, Queen, all that great stuff. And then a lot of really cool funk music. And it was just all very heavily beat-based stuff, from the funk and the rock stuff with, Led Zeppelin and just AC/DC, just such great beats. So that was the stuff that like I discovered and was just being played in the house. And then then it was like metal. It was Ozzy, Motley Crue, Dio, Maiden. And then like teenage years, it started getting even deeper into like the Slayer and like the, I even had a whole death metal phase where I was into like Morbid Angel and Obituary and like would go see those shows. And then like Fear Factory was a one for me because they were doing something really different, like sonically, that really stood out to me. I saw all these bands do shows, that was my childhood, just seeing shows. Long Island, New York, just back and forth on the train to see all those bands. And then like probably around like the teenage years too is when like we had that whole explosion of electronic music, and I really fell in love with the Chemical Brothers and the Prodigy, just all big beat stuff. And then that led me down to go into like raves and New York City underground clubs and discovering house music, and just falling in love and like seeing how that was like translating in a big venue with just people going insane and just all of that stuff. So it's just like the theme has just always been beat stuff. So that's why it's like now this far in my life, when people are like, I love electronic music, I have since teenage years. I've been part of the DJ world and culture. I literally was DJing in high school, because I had to. Like, I was a percussion player for an entertainment company, like just for spare money on the weekends. And one day the DJ like flaked. So the owner of the company was like, "You have to DJ." And I was like, okay. And I had to learn like with legit CDJs that we have now, like putting CDs into the CDJs,
Wow.
So yeah, so it's all been there. And then, and like, I would say too, like in in my later high school years, it was like the New York hardcore scene I was really into, and was in that scene as well, and played in 2 different bands that was in that scene. That was really, really cool to experience that, like in its prime, like all these venues that are gone in New York City now, going there to see these bands. And it's cool to see, like, obviously things just come back, like hardcore's come back now, and it's
Oh
like
yeah.
almost mainstream with your turnstiles and all that. But like still with Sum 41, we've played festivals with like Sick of It All and bands that are still doing it that like I grew up playing shows with and going to see, like they're still crushing. And that scene is just never went away, but it's just cool to see it doing so well now. And younger bands like the Knock Looses and all that stuff, which
Yep.
we just played a bunch of festivals with them this summer with Callboy, I think, like in these regions, like I think in Scandinavia. So it's, yeah, I mean, everything obviously, comes around and comes full circle at some point. There's always like a lapse and things just come back so much bigger, and it's cool to see.
Yeah, totally agree. It's wild because my old hardcore band played with Knocked Loose like I think 11 years ago or something. And the first time we played with them was in a garage, and they opened
Yeah.
in a garage.
Yeah, there wasn't
now
venues.
it's crazy.
Like those shows were literally because, especially in Long Island, we had, we would do a hardcore marathon Sunday from like noon to 8 at this one venue in Huntington. And that would be Hatebreed would come out, the New York hardcore bands would come out, Long Island hardcore bands, and it was just everybody. And then it got violent and ended. But we would do shows, VFW halls, rent out a VFW hall, do shows there, skate parks. Then because when the owners then would see what went on here and how crazy it was, they were like, you're not doing shows at our, Knights of Columbus anymore.
Right.
We started doing them at people's garages, backyards. My parents, bless them, let me have a hardcore show in my basement where the kids were literally crowd surfing, like holding onto the rafters. And, like just, we did that once and only because my parents were like, obviously they look out the window and they see, kids smoking joints and drinking 40 ounces. And they're like, okay, we can't have this at our house, but like, it just, because we ran out of venues and stuff. But it was cool to just like kind of make your own scene and like make your own flyers and like go to shows and flyer. It's like kids don't even know what that is now. And they probably think that's the stupidest thing. They hear it now because they're like, wait, I just put a post and like everybody could see, and I could tag certain things that'll be seen. It's like we had to go to shows and stand out there and flyer, or you'd be in the middle of the pit and throw a stack of flyers in the air. They'd fall down, people would grab them, put them on people's windows in the parking lot, on their windshields, like staple them to, and that's like obviously in the 80s, like that's how the Motley Crues and Sunset Strip, they would go around flyering and stapling, which it was cool. It was like, yeah, it was a lot of work, but like you had more pride in what you do. Now it's just like click one button. It's like, cool, AI, make me a flyer of this show. And it's like, here you go. It's just, it's like, it's cool to come up in a way where you actually had to physically do shit,
100%. I've been seeing it come back a tiny bit, and there was even stuff when I was in like a cover band and stuff, like last year, we were doing the same kind of things because like a lot of us came from that world where we were handing out flyers, and we would go to bigger shows around the area, hand out flyers at the end of the night, stuff like that. It's still there a little, but not as much as obviously it was before. I wish it was more of a thing. Hopefully, like you said, everything's a cycle. So I hope it starts to kind of come back as people realize that, which I hope people realize, is that AI should not be a replacement. It should be a tool. I'm fine with people using it as a tool, but it should not be a replacement for anything. And that's what it was invented for. But people take the commodity and the ease, and they take advantage of it, which is that's just humanity at its core. You did bring up hardcore bands. Letterboxd does this thing where they ask actors their 4 favorite movies. I wanted to ask you, put you on the spot a little bit. What is your 4 favorite New York hardcore bands?
Sick of It All was one, still is. Still enjoy listening to them. From the Long Island scene, it was great band, Vision of Disorder, VOD. They were like,
hell yeah,
they were my favorite from Long Island. Like they just the singer and the vibe, like everything about that band was just so rad. There was I don't know if they were from Long Island or the city. There was a band called Neglect where the singer would like cut himself on stage, like just a wild band and crazy breakdowns and like crazy shows. So like, Neglect, VOD, Sick of It All. And then probably like The one that I saw a lot was probably like Madball, which is still, we just played Sum 41 play with them, you know, a year ago at a festival, which we were just like, it was like hardcore and punk, and then we were there and we were just like, oh man, you know, but it was rad. Like Agnostic Front played like 2 bands before us, which was awesome to see. But there was a band that they were in the hardcore scene, but they were just a little bit different. And like at that time, I was into like experimental stuff. And there was a band called Doggy Dog, and like they had horns, and they would get like
Yeah, yeah,
funky,
yeah.
but then they would get super heavy. Like they were a cool band, which is funny to like, you know, you asked that question and like go back deep in the brain here to think about that stuff, because it's definitely been a minute. But yeah, I was in it. I had a punk band that then turned hardcore called Planet Freak, and then I was in this other band called SOE, which is a little bit more melodic. It was fun. It was fun until it got, you know, violent. But like going to the, you know, Wetlands, which was a big venue in New York, saw Murphy's Law a bunch, played a bunch of shows with Murphy's Law. They're still doing it. You know, we
Right.
toured when I, you know, started Street Drum Corps. One of the first tours that we did, the lineup was insane. It was the Used on In Love and Death album cycle, which was huge. Street Drum Corps, H2O, Glassjaw, and 30 Seconds to Mars. It was
What?
insane. And we shared a
That's
bus with
crazy.
H2O, which was awesome. You know, great dudes. Wild nights. Like you'll never take the, you know, it's like writing a book, you know, you forget certain stories and things have been coming out in interviews because of some of the deep questions. But like something I forgot to add in the book that you just like talking about this, like, so we shared a bus with H2O and we were in somewhere Pennsylvania, and Bam Margera came to the show, and he was like after party at Viva La Bam, you know, his castle.
Yeah.
And this is before like Uber and stuff. And there's the Used, 30 Seconds to Mars, H2O, like all of us that want to go. And call is until very, very late. And literally, I don't know why the keys were in there, but we took our H2O and Street Drum Corps bus. Rusty from H2O drove the bus because he knew how to drive buses. We filled it with the Used, 30 Seconds to Mars. We all went to Bam's house, partied, brought the bus back. We get back, and the tour manager and the bus driver standing outside, irate, like freaking out. But that was a night.
That's incredible. Wow, that's
Yeah.
awesome. It's funny too because I just talked to one of the guys from CKY too. So weird
Oh, cool.
melding of worlds. Your story with how you got into Electric Callboy is you can find it anywhere for good reason. It's a crazy story. It's an absolutely insane story of how that came to be. What I didn't see a lot of, but I did end up finding it, and it is in your book, is the story of you coming to join Sum 41. The thing I loved about it most, and I am paraphrasing what you said in the book, is that become the guy that doesn't need to audition to be a member of the band, or you said something along those lines, which I thought was
Mhm.
so cool. And then hearing these stories of the Electric Callboys, of you filling in for Motley Crue, and then the Sum 41 thing, you just shooting your shot at Derek, just being like, hey, I heard the guy left the band. If you ever need anyone, I would love the opportunity. But I kind of want to dive deep into the story of how that came to be, the kind of your relationship with Derek, and how that blossomed into becoming Sum 41, because it is a very fascinating series of events that led to eventually you being in Sum 41.
Yeah, it was a journey for sure, you know, over time. I was a huge fan of Sum 41 and didn't know them. And then on the Warp Tour, they were on a Canadian leg of it. And I was out with Street Drum Corps, and we all wound up at the same bar. So I met the guys, we, you know, partied. And then, like, I just kept bumping into Derek in LA at clubs, events, you know, shows. You know, he's good friends with Tommy Lee. So was I. So we, you know, I remember one night Derek and I just sitting behind Tommy's kit for the whole show, like just watching the show and passing a bottle of Jaeger back and forth, like watching Tommy drum, like just cool stuff. We just were always around. And then he collaborated with Tommy Lee and I when we put together this insane show called Berserk. We had all these rock stars join us. So we worked together on that. And because of that, shortly after Street Drum Corps got our Vegas residency, I invited Derek to perform for that. And like that was the first time we like physically performed together, because when he did the thing with Tommy and I, Tommy and I weren't in that part of the show. We produced it and wrote it, but we didn't like, do that part with him. And like, just to feel his energy on stage and everything was just like, this dude is like, just knows how to command an audience. He's just a great performer. It's just really resonated with me. And then, Steve quit the band at that time. And I was like, okay, this is a band that I love and I would love to be in. I just put it out there, and it just kind of started as the band really wasn't a band at that time. It was just like, we just started becoming friends. It was like, come to my house for parties, and then we would jam a little bit, come over one day, jam a couple songs and party, and then he, wound up in the hospital, and he called me, let me know what had happened right when I got back from my honeymoon, and I went and visited him. And then throughout his recovery, he was starting to get inspired again and write, and started, really dialing his studio in. So he would call me and say, you want to come over and jam or come help get sound? So it kind of started that way. It's just like helping my friend, get inspired again, and, recovering. And then like jamming started happening and learning some 41 songs. And then when it finally got to a point, it was like, he brought the guys out and we spent a week together. And then it was like, and after that, but it was cool to like, they didn't audition anybody else. They didn't have auditions. Like they didn't want like session guys. They wanted a brother, to be in the band, which is really cool,
Right.
which generally doesn't happen in those situations. But it was just about putting it out there, and going for something, and like, what's the worst that could happen? And, they don't respond or it doesn't happen. But like, I knew that they were going to get berated by everybody, because it's a
Right.
huge band. So it was just about, going for something. And, it's just, I had gotten known as the guy who can kind of jump in last minute and fill in without rehearsals and whatnot, which is an honor. It's just like, I think that just comes from all of my years of just like putting in the hours in cover bands and playing 3 hours a night. It got to a point where we stopped rehearsing because we didn't want to anymore. So we would just, on the way to the gig, listen to the new song we had to learn and then bang it out at sound check, or just go on stage and go for it. It got to that point. So I think all that training really paid off later in life. But like, I hadn't exercised that part of my brain in over a decade, being with some. And then the callboy thing happened. And it was so amazing to like reactivate that part and be able to deliver and do it. And it came at a time where it was just like, okay, the end is about to be here with some, and
Right.
I don't know what's next. And after playing Electric Callboy and hanging with them, I was like, I want to be in this band, but that's out of my control. But I knew, even if that didn't happen, because I did this and was able to deliver, and the story organically went viral and stuff, I was like, okay, I'll be able to get another gig at some point when some's
For
all
sure.
done. So it kind of alleviated a lot of like, insecurities and fear in that moment. But yeah, it's like, I came in a situation to deliver for them. And then when he finally left the band, they called me, and it's been off to the races ever since,
Yeah. And the way Sum 41 ended is insane. You guys went out in probably the biggest possible way ever, getting inducted to the
100%.
Canadian Hall of Fame, getting a street named after you, getting the key to the city, everything like that, like a massive, massive swan song to, the last record had a couple number one hits, sold out arenas, like a level of success you probably guys never even realized was possible.
Never would have. We thought we were going to have a rad final tour. We know our fan base is there. We knew it would be special, but all these other things, it was never even in the vision board, because it was just like, it wasn't in our thoughts. It was just like, let's just go out and celebrate this record, give our fans a great tour. And then all this stuff happened, which for me, it was amazing to be part of that, because it's the biggest of the bands. It topped everything they had done in their past, and like, to be part of that, because when I joined the band, first of all, it wasn't a band, and then when it became a band, we started in clubs again to rebuild this band.
Right.
So in a decade, to go from literally nothing to where it ended is really special to be part of that. And that's because we put in the work. We toured our asses off. We poured everything into these records. We were brothers, and the relationship, like, it ended on such a, there's no drama. Like, it was, it was a great, that's what so many people just like think, that when bands end, it's like, 'cause there's beef or whatever. It's like, there was none of that,
Right.
it was very lovely. And it was its time, and great way to go out. I think it made it even harder when you get to this level of success and you're like, wait, this is ending, wait, in a month, like what? So it's definitely a lot, but Derek's always just a believer of when he makes a decision, that's what he stands for and believes in. And better to go out on top than to keep chasing the party. And you see that so often when you're like, this was a cool band, this doesn't even represent, it's an embarrassment now. You don't want to become that, so it's like I always respect going out on top than to just crash and burn, and it's like one dude left and they're playing first on a festival to 20 people, and it's like, what?
Yeah, that's a really good point. I did want to ask though, seeing that success and seeing like the possibility of things, if there was anything else to come. I know Derek has been, like you said, he is, once he sets his mind, it's something like that. And I've heard in interviews he's pretty adamant of the band being done. But do you think if the right opportunity presented itself, there would be a possibility that that door is still open, or it's like, nope, we ended on such a high note, we're going to leave it at that?
There's been zero conversations or plans or any of that. Anything's possible, obviously. Who knows in time and perfect opportunities, but there's no plan, no anything. I mean, I just played with Derek recently. We just played with the Jonas Brothers. We played In Too Deep with the Jonas Brothers in a sold out arena in Seattle, which was awesome to jam with him and play that song and see it like go over that well with, a young band and all that. But like, no, I mean, he's on his new, vision. He's enjoying being home with the family, working on his clothing line and it's just, yeah, there's just no plans. I mean, I know like we got rid of gear, like it was just very like, it ended. I took my stuff. We got rid of our storage unit. Like it was as final as can be. Anything's obviously possible, like, and it's like the Motley Crue thing. Like, they made a contract to never play it again and they blew it up and then start playing stadiums and, bigger than ever. It's like anything's possible, but it's still so fresh. We went so hard, over the decade, except for like COVID, the first part of COVID, Derek had his second kid. I had my second kid, which was awesome to be home for all that. And then he started writing. So then he and I were secretly working together in the studio, getting drums together. And, because the drums are obviously the foundation for every record. So all that started happening. But because there was no, like, normally we have deadlines because you have to go on tour or the festivals. Like we had nothing because of COVID. And that's why it turned into a double record, which was a blessing of that. We got to make this great record and check all the boxes of like the history of the band. And like for every fan of everything, it's like there's nothing you can not say about that record. For the people that only like pop punk, there you go. People that only like the metal side of something, there you go. People that like ballads, there it's like checked every box. And it wasn't like some masterminded plan. It just organically happened. And we all came separately to the same ideas and visions, and which is like, you let the music talk, and it did. And we all felt it too, which was a special way that like, everyone kind of said the same thing individually, thought the same thing individually. Because in the beginning it was like, we got sent songs and it was like Twist of Fate and Rise Up in the same couple batch, which, I mean, some's always been like that though, which is what I love about some. I love bands that take you on a journey. There's, for every vibe you've got, if you're feeling aggressive, if you're feeling emo, if you're feeling happy, it's kind of like got all those vibes. So they've always done a great job with that. But since I had been in the band, like the last two records before the double album were pretty freaking heavy. There was some ballads on there like War and Never There and stuff like that, but there was zero pop punk. It was just metal and some ballads. So it was cool to be part of that, and especially in a time like COVID where everything was so dark and negative. Like I remember getting Landmines and Twist of Fate and like the joy and emotion that came out to be playing those songs of new songs, because I wasn't part of that stuff, from back in the day. Obviously we still played those songs live, but I wasn't part of the creative process of that stuff. So it was cool to just like, be in that time.
Yeah. Speaking of being part of like the creative process, now that you're fully in Electric Callboy, a new single just dropped ahead of the world tour you guys are currently on. Did you have a hand in writing that and everything like that?
Not the new single. That stuff was done, prior to me being in. We did the Still Waiting thing together, which was like a really fun experiment, because that was like, we literally did it to pay tribute to Sum 41 because we had to cancel the festival, to introduce me, and we just played like the riff and the drop, and that was it, you know? So when I was going to do the festival, and they're like, let's do the whole song and let's do a callboy, you know? So they sent me a demo, you know, I then showed up in Europe and we worked on it in the rehearsal room together, worked it out, played it on that festival run. And because of just how well it was going over, the energy and the response, we're like, we had a day off. We went in the studio and we tracked drums. So that was cool to like go record with them. And then the music video was all the live festival footage, you know, put together to show like what it was like. So that was really, really cool. But yeah, they were pretty deep into the new record, you know, at that time. But, you know, I'm sure we'll, you know, collaborate more. I mean, we have a jam room now backstage, and, you know, Dan and I have been jamming backstage and stuff. So who knows where anything goes right now. We're just so into this tour and putting on the best show right now. So that's like the priority. But it was great to, you know, obviously they make the best music videos. A lot of thought goes into it, a lot of just madness. So to actually get in on that action was so fun. It was the hardest video I've ever done in my life, and I've done so many damn videos because of the makeup, the brain pieces we had to wear. Like it was all day. I mean, we didn't start shooting till 9:30 at night, and I was in the makeup chair at like 2 p.m. Like, first of all, we had to put on a crazy ball cap that they have to glue to your head. Eyebrows, you know, they have to put on as well, like bald eyebrows, and then the makeup application. Then the brain thing, which was like so tight, like it bruised all of our heads, you know, like it was just so tight because the way that had to look, you know, and then like fighting your body, you just want to rock out to do all of the like alien kind of moves to, you know, the vibe that we wanted to do. So it was a really hard video, and we went till like 2:30 in the morning, and that was like on the sound stage where we were doing production rehearsals, because it was like a hinting to give away the production, you know. And then I had the wild idea to play with these giant drumsticks, which wound up we were going to cut it, and then we did it last minute, and it wound up being such a fun, you know, people are making, you know, gifts out of it now, like, you know, for the just because it's so ridiculous. But it was a fun video, but like a hard video just because of the make. And then after, the amount just to get the glue off of your head, face, neck, like it was. I've never showered and scrubbed that long. It was rough. And then we were like back in the morning into running the set of production rehearsals. So wild, but so fun to be part of that process.
Yeah, it's a very cool music video, and it's like you watch it and you're like just in awe of like what you guys pulled off to make it and everything. It's a very, very awesome music video. I want to pivot to your book. That's what we're really here to talk about, Unbreakable Rhythm. And I know the idea of this book was to take what you've been doing in these drum clinics and spreading the word of mental health and of the possibilities of what anyone's life can become. And you wanted to take you know, you obviously you're a full-time touring musician, and you have other things other than being, you know, you're a husband, you're a father, everything like that. And this is a way to kind of spread that message to the masses in the easiest way possible. But how did the concept of piecing it together with interviews from your closest friends, your peers, and family members come about to be a part of this book?
The writing process was interview style. Jason Pettigrew, who wrote for AP magazine for years, has interviewed me so much over my career that when I started talking, because I'd been collecting notes, I feel like my whole life about if I did a book one day, you know, and jotting things down. And I think like when some was starting to end, I was like, okay, there's kind of a story, you know, I was thinking like in my head, there's kind of a story here. And I was talking to my managers, and we started talking about, you know, people that I would do this with, and Jason's name came up. I called Jason and told him like, this is what's happening at my workshops, and I feel like because of the results I'm seeing, I feel like this needs to be in a book so it's accessible for everybody around the world 24/7, audiobook, ebook, you know, physical book, because it's literally the conversation we're having. It's inspiring, it's motivating, it's saving lives, like just the wellness, like there's just so much packed in here. So he was like, when's your next workshop? I told him. He came out, because it's just something that you have to experience, you know, and be there. So he was there. It was at House of Bands in Chicago. And afterwards he sat bird's eye view, listening to the kids and parents come talk to me at the meet and greet, and all these special moments and stuff. And then we went to the dressing room for like an hour, and he just rolled tape and we started talking. And that is the introduction of this book, which is so cool. So then we just kept it in that style where we would get on a phone call like 1 to 3 times a week, and we would just talk. And then from that, I started laying out, okay, chapters. And then, you know, he had to go through about a year's worth of interviews and transcribe them and then place them into these chapters. He'd place them in, then we'd have shared, you know, documents that I can go in and edit. And then I'd start writing and elaborating on, he'd leave me tons of, you know, clarify this, what year, I need more information on this. So boom, I'd go in and start writing. So we worked back and forth like that. And then it was like, okay, we're so connected to this, we need to make sure that a reader who's not you or me, that we just know everything because we lived it. We need to make sure that the reader can understand everything. So we brought in a copy editor at the end to just really give it a look through and make sure that, you know, which wound up being very, very valuable and helpful to the process, which was cool. It was just a really cool collaborative thing. And then it was like that ended and it was like, okay, audiobook time. And then to answer your question about the guest, I just kept referencing all these times. And then I literally just said to Jason, I was like, do you think we should just get their perspective? Like key people in my life from all walks of life. Like when I'm talking about playing in Motley Crue and all that, like be cool to get Tommy's perspective. Boom, we got him. Everybody was like, yeah, just tell me when and where, I'll get on the call. I let Jason do all the interviews. So it was just, they could be open without me being on the call. And I never heard them. I never heard them until he put them into the excerpts that we were working on. It was really amazing and powerful to read this stuff, you know, and we got family members of mine, the wellness and, you know, athletes in this book, so many legendary musicians, business people I work with, you know, all of that. So that was really cool because then it was like, as we're getting into it, I'm like, okay, we should get him, we should get this person, you know. So and literally every single person was down, which was so special. And I just feel like it's also a different thing because I don't really see that in a lot of the books that I read, you know,
Yeah.
when they reference things. It's cool to get those other people's, you know, perspective on a very important situation and stuff. So I just thought that would make it different, and also like making it different, checking all these different boxes where I'm like, if you don't even know a thing about drums or you don't even like music, you'll get something out of this book. So that was like the goal of this whole thing. Just I wanted to just do something different. We've read so many books about the crazy rock star stories or just being a musician. Like there's just so many sides to me, and just seeing how these conversations I'm having, how well they're going, I was just like, okay, this, because that's like always my thing when I'm driving home or flying home after these events and I'm like decompressing, I'm just like, these are so powerful. How do I get this message bigger? How do I, you know, I could do more events, but it's a big world and it takes a lot to put these on, you know, and not on my, but for, you know, coordinating and if there's a budget to fly there or how it works, you know, like we were blessed before COVID. Vans was like, yo, this is amazing. Go tour it. We want it free for the kids and we'll pay your touring cost to do it. COVID happened. Companies don't have that now. So I've had to pivot to figure out how I could do them. So, you know, I do a handful a year, but it's a big world. And I just feel like I want to use my spotlight to highlight this stuff. And if it could help somebody or give them some insight, you know, I've listed a lot of resources in the book as well. Just checked a lot of boxes, I think. And yeah, it's coming out a week from today, which is insane.
Yeah, by the time this episode is out, it'll be out. So you can
Awesome.
you can purchase it and everything like that. For the audiobook, I know I've heard you in interviews talking about how you were recording, obviously, the audio for it. For the guests, are the guests recording their parts as well?
No, like just too many people. And it
I
was,
figured that'd
you
be
know,
hard to pull off.
yeah, like just timing and all that. I had, you know, my publisher is Modern Drummer. I had the owner do all the male voices of the book. And then we got a female to do the female. So it's like, it's cool. So when there's females, you hear a female voice and all that. It went better than I thought, you know, like I would do about 2 to 3 chapters a day for about a week. And then what I was doing is after I would finish, like I would record and then go through and edit And I did it myself. I edited it myself because I wanted to. I just wanted to control different takes, certain things. So I just did it all myself. And then I would, after I edited it, I'd have to go proof, listen and read along to the manuscript, have to bounce the thing down, upload it for, the publisher. So it was a big thing, but it was a very triumphant thing to be able to like really do it myself and to do that work. It's, I'm literally tonight, I have to like listen to another 5-hour version of it to approve. So it's like this the last thing here, and then it's like, then all the fun stuff. Then we just get to go do events and talk to people like yourself to spread the word on this book. But yeah, it's really insane. Like they just sent me a picture of like the printers with, the stuff being printed. It's crazy to see it's actually like real, like I still don't believe it, because it's just like something, such a bucket list thing. And, we made it happen. We made it happen and happen in the most organic way. We made a deck, and we were just like sharing it with people we knew in the industry. And Modern Drummer came out to do a drum rig rundown with me. The owner wasn't there. He and I caught up on the phone the next day, and he's asking me what I'm doing, what I'm working on. I told him about this book, and he's like, well, we have a publishing company. Send me the deck. Send him the deck. A deal came immediately, and then it got real. And it makes sense. It just totally makes sense working with, a drum outlet. Then their distribution is tight with School of Rock and does all stuff with School of Rock. So it's like so meant to be with the people that I work with in my life. And they've been just I've had 100% creative control. I didn't have to like, submit manuscripts to them for them to approve. It was just like, send it when you're done and we'll put it out, which is really great to have like creative control of this and not have any other cooks in the kitchen. Like they believed in my team of my co-writer and our copy editor, and that was it. Even my manager, bless him, like I gotta thank him. Like he was on all the emails to read all the chapters, and he never butted in. He let us do our thing.
Incredible. That's really amazing.
Yeah.
When did the idea to have like an accompanying EP with the book come about? Was that like from
totally
the
by
jump?
accident? No, it was not. It was not even a thought. Like I was living in Europe over the summer doing festivals, and it came time to like pick the photos because there's an extensive photo gallery within the book, and I'm going through my life and just had iTunes playing in the background, and these unfinished songs came on, and I was like, the emotion of this book is like these songs. So I literally I uploaded it to like SoundCloud or something, and I sent it to Create Music Group, who I'd been working with, to the A&R there. And I said, hey man, I feel like this is a soundtrack to my book. It's an EP. Here's the, the music to check out. Here's the books coming out. And he was like, we'll put it out. He's like, he didn't even listen to it. He just was like, I believe in you and I believe in what you're doing. And just literally was like, yeah, we'll put it out. So that's really cool. As another added thing, like people can scan in the book and it'll take you to the EP. In the audiobook, it's going to have a little bit of that stuff to bookend it as soundscape stuff, which is cool. So then I went up like, okay, I got to finish these songs, just like mixing and mastering, stuff like that. But it's the instrumental songs. There's two different females on 2 songs. And then my favorite part was I had my kids do the single and the EP art. I was on the road and I was just like, they were having trouble with me, being away, which they always do. And it was just like a way to stay connected. So I came home and played them the music. And I just said, draw whatever comes through your mind. Because my uncle did that for me when I was young. He was teaching me piano lessons, and he was just like, I think he was trying to do an experiment on like songwriting. He's like, I'm going to play something right now. And what do you see? Like, what do you see? And I think that's always been like deep inside, from having that at such a young age. So I said to the boys, I'm going to play this EP, just start drawing. And then that was it. Then I was like, okay, let's hone it in now. So I like this, I like that, and then we put it together. But it's really cool to make them part of it. And like, they're geeking out on like they see their art, on Spotify and stuff. And it's just a special thing. And that's another like personal thing about this book was to have this for my kids. They're young now. So, one day for them to like read this about their dad and like share it with their kids, like that's just like a personal, really cool, meaning behind it for me that is really cool. Like I wish I had that about like my grandfather, who was like a huge role model and stuff
Right.
like that. So it'd be cool. My father-in-law actually did a book, which is really, really cool. Like, one you can make it yourself, kind of like, and my mother-in-law helped him with it, and he's got a very big family and a really crazy, interesting life. So he made like a book himself, which was super cool that we have that, be in the family forever, that our kids will, pass down. So super cool.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I know you said you wanted to craft something different with this book, and I think you nailed it. Everything involved with it is so, it feels so fresh. Like obviously doing like a kind of biographical story of your life is not a new thing. It's obviously
Yeah.
a thing that's been done a million, especially in the music scene. It's been done time and time again. But the way you've crafted it and the way it's formatted is like super engaging. Seeing those different point of views and everything it's very cool, very well done. So mission accomplished
Thank
there.
you.
I'm
I didn't know,
ex-
man. I was, a bit like, is it going to be too all over the place? But I'm like, I don't care. This is just, we're we're on this path. And then when I started to see it to come together in the way that things do circle back around. You'll hear something
Mhm.
repeated because of this, and now why it's in this chapter because of what happened there. So like, there's a lot of that kind of stuff, which was cleverly done. And it's like, what I like about it too. I was just like, when I was getting the chapters and stuff, I was like, oh man, is this going to be like a 400, page book or something? And it's not. It's
It's
152,
not,
I
yeah.
think 152 pages. So you can bang this thing out in a weekend.
Yeah.
It's like a good, fun, read for, the School of Rock kids that I work with. They're younger, so it's like, I think for their bandwidth and like the world they live in now, where everything is so social media and quick, it's like a good read. I hit all the important marks. It's kind of all there. And yeah, I'm really, really excited about, how it all came out at the end of the day. It was a big, big feat, like a huge, definitely one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. The hours that just went into, especially when it was like finalizing manuscript, then
Right.
audiobook, which is still not done. It's just like we're still, a week out and it's like still not done. So like I literally had a backstage yesterday because I don't have my rig on tour with me. I was just like into our band crew chat. I was like, who has a microphone and a sound card? I have to re-edit something for this book. So I'm literally in the wardrobe room yesterday backstage, where it's like half jam room, half wardrobe room. Our wardrobe girl is sewing, and I'm like redoing, the intro part of this thing backstage. But like, gotta get done.
Yeah, you gotta do what you gotta do. That's amazing though, and it's cool how involved you were, which I mean it's no shock. So usually this show is very pop culture based, but with your book coming out and with the story you had, I felt like there was corners we could reach into that I haven't heard in other interviews. So I wanted to dive into those pockets too.
Cool.
But do want to talk a little bit of pop culture. So I want to
Sure.
start with your relationship with pop culture. Listening to these interviews and trying to get the lay of the land for this episode, I was like, I don't know if this guy, because I haven't heard back from your lovely PR person if you watch TV or movies or anything, and I was just like, I'm going to do this interview regardless. I want to make it happen anyway. And hearing like how kind of like disciplined you are with health and wellness and being present and stuff like that, I was like, I don't know, maybe he doesn't watch TV or movies. And then hearing no, you do. So like, what is your relationship with TV or movies? Is kind of like a recreational thing, like a nice kickback thing while you're on the road? Is it kind of a way to connect with your partner, your kids when you're home? What's your kind of habits of consuming media?
So these days, movies are planes because I'm the American in Electric Callboy. So the amount of, I've gone back and forth since joining this band like 6, 7 times. And it's a
Right.
very long flight with 3 flights to get to Germany. So yes, I've watched, your typical, nothing that, stands out that like I would, oh my God, it's like just plain movies that you're just kind of passing the time stuff, but like TV series are my thing. Like after a rehearsal, when I just need to like shut off, I'll either read, like I'm reading a book right now called Good Stress. I love to read. On the summer, I read Mark Hoppus's book when we were doing festivals.
Mm.
Now I'm reading this Good Stress book. So I do love to read. Like I have, in my bunk, if I have any energy left before bed after the show, I'll read. I don't watch, I don't game, I don't watch shows in my bunk on a day off in the hotel room when it's just time to just like decompress. It's TV shows. So like I watched all 3 seasons of Welcome to Wrexham because my kids play soccer, and I know it's a
Awesome.
huge thing in, in Europe and UK and South America. And I'm taking my family to a game when they come visit me on tour. So I wanted to just like learn about it. And I love, Rob McElhenney from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia is one of my favorite shows. I've watched that show forever, since the beginning. So I love him. And that show was great, learning just about the culture, the fans in a small town, just all this stuff and what goes into running a business of a team and the leagues and all this stuff. So I watched all 3 seasons on my back and forth, flights. So that was like this summer what I watched. I just watched the first season of The Studio with Seth Rogen, which is like very Hollywood making movies and all that. Really, really cool. So many cameos. It's kind of like Entourage-ish, which I used to love that show. It's got a little bit of the Entourage like vibe of like Hollywood and movie making in it. Curb Your Enthusiasm was like probably my favorite show, which I watched the final season of that on planes when that came out. There's a show that I just watched the first season on Netflix, and it's like I watched it a while ago and I forgot. And when it was like in my, like recently watched it, I was like, what is this? I was like, oh yeah, I did watch that. There's a bunch of big actors in it, and it's like more like couples and like they
4
go off.
seasons.
Yes. Nice. Thank you. 4 seasons. Yes. I watched that first season. That was just interesting. A lot of feels going on in that one, from funny to whoa, like that was a good one. So yeah, 4 seasons. I watched that season. And then when I was in Vegas during COVID times and I was just in the studio recording and I would be back at my hotel, I started watching the morning show on Apple TV, and that just picked up its season. So I've been watching that again. That's a wild show.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
just binged through all of the seasons of that to catch up to the new season over the past like month and a half or so. And I was because when I saw like Reese Witherspoon and Jennifer Aniston, I was like, oh, it's going to be kind of like bubbly, funny kind of thing. And
Not at all.
no, I watched the pilot and I was like, whoa, wow. And I've just been entranced in that show. I can't believe 4 seasons in, it's still like as good as it has been since
Totally.
this first season. It's
But
absolutely
that's just like me on planes and hotels on tour. Like when I take some time, like this is the most recent stuff that took me a while, obviously, to get through because I don't just binge watch or have the time to. But yeah, generally I'd rather, read. And then my favorite shows, and it's family stuff, which my kids are into, which is just on the wellness tip and all that, which we watch. We watch Limitless with Chris Helmsworth, which is just seeing him do all this, which is a lot of stuff I do, be put in these situations with cold exposure, hot exposure, having to complete a task in a limited amount of time, and all this stuff. My kids really got into that. Like I watched the first season with my wife, and now as a family we're watching the newest one. And then my wife and I, when we were getting ready to go last year to take the kids to Italy, we started watching Tucci in Italy, just to learn about dining and all these places. And we started taking notes, and then now the kids are watching dinner with him because they came to Italy and they loved it so much. So that's a cool like family one that we'll pick back up on when I'm home for the holidays. My wife and I used to like our date nights whenever I was off the road. We'd on a Friday or Saturday, if I was home, we'd watch a show. And we honestly haven't done that in a long time because we've just been like because I've been gone so much, just like actually connecting and talking instead of just sitting there and not talking. So we've kind of just like I haven't really sat on the couch and done that. Obviously holidays are going to be different because we get to just like really chill and watch a lot of, my kids love all the holiday movies that we all watch a million times, and Nightmare Before Christmas and Home Alone and National Lampoons, all the classics. So that'll be fun to get back to all that. And then honestly podcasts, because I love to learn and by the people in my world of wellness. And I love Rick Rubin's podcast and the guests that he has on, Huberman, and there's so many that I just love. And then I love the comedians just for just stuff that just hear him talk shit and just funny stuff like Bert Kreischer and a lot of the comedians, Whitney Cummings and stuff like that. Is always great to just listen to those podcasts.
Yeah, I'm a big podcast guy too. My go-tos are Dax Shepard's podcast. because it is kind of very mental health and where you come from kind of focused. And it's kind of cool to see famous people feel grounded, and when you usually they don't feel grounded, but when you listen to Matt Damon talk about stuff and you're like, oh yeah, he is just another dude, he just has a very different life than most of us. And then there's on the comedy side, there's Jake Johnson from New Girl. He has a podcast called We're Here to Help, and it's him and his friend, and they basically take in calls of people who have problems and they give them pretty much like bad advice on their problems. It's a pretty funny that's usually like my driving one.
Traveling, in the gym, you know, because my ears need a break, like, you know,
right,
because of just, especially on tour, things are loud all the time. So, you know, I don't have any problem with motivation. When I'm at home, because I'm prepping for a tour, I'll crank as I'm working out the Electric Callboy set just to, you know, repetition and just get back in the vibe of everything. But mainly though, like today I was in the gym at the hotel. It was just podcast. Like my ears need to have a rest, especially on a day off. So yeah, that's a lot better for me. Like I don't need to blast Slayer to get motivated. Like, you know, I have no problem with motivation. I'd rather just like listen to people talk softly than just, you know, loud music.
I usually listen to podcasts at the gym too. So thank you for making me feel like not a psychopath. Because usually when I tell people, they're like, are you insane? I'm like, no, I don't know. I'm fine with just working out with people talking. I don't
totally. Yeah. Even in the sauna, I'll put on a podcast, you know.
Frank, thank you so much for taking time out to talk to me today.
Thanks for having me on and just helping spread the message of this book. That's just the goal, is to just spread awareness, have as many people, you know, have this as a resource. And that's my goal and mission of this book, you know, and it's just really, it's fun to just get to talk with, you know, people about it. And it's exciting now that like it's here. So obviously this is going to be out when the book's out. So everybody who hasn't checked it out, check it out. It's ebook, audiobook, Amazon worldwide, and, you know, physical copies you can order on Amazon as well. And if you have checked it out already, thank you for the support. And I hope, you know, it resonated with you in some way. And I can't wait to start hearing people's, you know, comments on that and having that interaction, seeing that kind of feedback. That's going to be really exciting.
And I'll make sure and link everyone down below. If you're interested in the book, I'll put links down to buy the book, to check out his workshops, everything like that. So you can click there in one easy place. If you want to support the podcast, go to milkrunners.com. All our links there. And if you want to follow me on a personal account, it's just at SeanXMA on Instagram and Twitter. And until next time, see you later, nerds.
See you guys.